All right. I know that in my last video I talked a lot of smack about Mayfield, and I'm coming on here to say that I was wrong. I cut out most of it because I really ranted about how much I don't care about Mayfield and how much I don't want to see him, but like, I think he was the star of the episode. Hi friends, how are you doing today? I hope that you're having an amazing day today. If you're new here, my name is Crystal Kyber. If you don't know what Kyber crystals are, then you definitely need to watch more of my videos. We have a lot to talk about in this episode. There's a lot to dive into. There's a lot of layers in this episode, and I'm really excited to talk about them with you guys. Today we are talking about The Mandalorian Season 2, Chapter 15, The Believer. And I want to talk about who the Believer is in this episode, and I'll give you guys a hint, it's all of them. We start off this episode with picking up Mayfield, and he is in a Republic jail or a mining Republic labor camp, and we see a bunch of TIE fighters or old TIE fighters that he's taking apart. What I thought was really cool about this junkyard labor camp situation is it reminded me a lot of the junkyard that we saw with Maul's arc in Clone Wars. I know it's not the same thing, but it just reminded me of that, and anything that reminds me of Darth Maul is like a good thing. I also really liked seeing all the different aliens. You guys know that I love all the aliens. Mayfield is picked up by Cara Dune, who meets Boba Fett and Fennec at the Slave One. I just want to note that Boba Fett got a brand new paint job on his armor, and he looks so fresh, so clean, so fresh and so clean. I love the matte finish of his armor. If you couldn't tell, I tried to pay homage? I tried to pay respects to his new paint job with my makeup today. What do you guys think? Did I do him honor? Did I do honor for him? Can I talk today or no? I even tried to do like these little bobby pin moments to kind of like emulate the stripes in his helmet. What do you guys think? Yes, no, yes, no. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys like my makeup. I can't take all the credit. Friend Mariah is the one that recommended it, but I actually recorded myself doing this makeup, so that will be on my channel very soon as well. Also, I just want to mention that Din does have his jetpack back. He's wearing it when he walks back into the Slave One. The reason they need Mayfield is because he used to be an imp. He still has all his clearance codes, and he still knows Imperial protocol, so that's why they need him, because they need him to find Moff Gideon. So they need to find the coordinates to Moff Gideon, and in order to do that, they need access to an Imperial database. And I guess the closest one is Morak. And Morak is a mining hub, and they refine Rhodonia. And Rhodonia is something that we see in Clone Wars and in Rebels. I just want to mention that I do love this squad. Like, I love Din, Boba, Fennec, and Cara together. I'd be so okay if the show was just the four of them forever. I also love getting to see the Slave One, the insides of Slave One, and how it kind of corrects itself while we are going through space. That was a really cool thing to see. I was really stoked about that. I think that Cara and Mayfield were such a good back and forth for each other. I love seeing Boba and Din together. So once they get to Morak, we see them debating on who's gonna go with Mayfield, because Mayfield's not gonna go alone. They think that Mayfield will just call and turn them all in. And then Boba says he can't go because they might recognize his face. And it's probably one of the funniest lines in the episode. The only person left is Din. And I think what was funny about this moment, it was Din was looking at the juggernauts or the transport vehicles, and he sees that the stormtroopers have helmets on, and somehow he decides that that will be okay. Like, he can just put on a stormtrooper helmet and then that's fine. So in this scene, I was like, Cara Dune and Mayfield, just kiss. I don't know if that's like really embarrassing. I just like want everyone to kiss in this show, but Cara Dune and Mayfield, like Cara Dune, Mayfield, and Din, they hijack the Juggernaut, the transport. They take the two stormtroopers, tank trooper armor. Cara Dune goes back and rendezvous with Fennec and Boba. So Mayfield and Din are kind of having this conversation, and it's so funny because Mayfield is just being so annoying. Drive through a village and we see that it's kind of run down, and Mayfield says, you know, at this point it's all the same. Republic, Empire, it doesn't matter. Like, it's all the same. We'll bring that up again later. So the locals are not happy to see this transport drive through their city. It is pretty rude that they built a transporting road right through their village, and kind of a social commentary, if you know what I mean. There's a lot of layers to this episode. Mayfield remarks that we are just invaders of their land, and it is just very really makes you think. So Mayfield starts going off about morality and just how you're either the ruled or the ruling. And he also talks about how if you can just be able to do what you do and then sleep at night, then you're already doing better than most of us. Something that Din has been struggling with all season. He sees other Mandalorians taking off their helmets. Like, he clearly sees Bo-Katan and Boba Fett and the Night Owls as Mandalorians. And I feel like that really does mess with you after a while. Like, I feel like it would start to challenge your world views. Maybe not like all at once, but I think over time it's something that you would start to reconsider. And we also see this in the first season when Din goes back to his tribe in Navarro. He sees all the Mandalorian helmets and the armorer says, no, they all did it willingly. And I think Din felt very disrespected, but I think at this point we're learning that it is more important to survive or to live and continue living than to die by the creed. So we get some explosions up ahead from the other juggernauts, and then we get pirates, and I was so bummed that none of them were Hondo. Like, how are you gonna drop pirates and not give us Hondo? Like, this also happened with Bo-Katan's episode. We got a reference to pirates, and there's still no Hondo. Why not Hondo? This episode was all about challenging morality. I mean, you can see it within the title, The Believer. But it's really interesting in this because Din and Mayfield are dressed as Imperial officers and they're fighting off pirates. And it's like these pirates are just like the rebellion. They're trying to get rid of the Empire. And it's kind of like who's right and who's wrong in this situation, because in any other situation, we would be cheering for the rebels, aka the pirates. What is right and what's wrong? And I think that's like a really big question of this episode. The pirates are trying to hijack the Juggernaut, and we get like this really cool Western throwback of a train, like a train chase or a train heist, and it was even complete with dynamite, aka the Redonia. Din decides, okay, well, you keep driving, you keep it steady, and I'll go fight off these pirates. The action scene was really cool, but it was cool seeing Din realize that he's not wearing Beskar, and when he tries to defend and block himself, his armor just explodes, and like his stormtrooper armor just, it's garbage. And I really like that, and I really think that that shows how vulnerable Din is in this situation. And I really think that this episode is really about Din's vulnerability and how being a Mandalorian is such a huge part of who he is as a human being, and how he shouldn't rely on his Beskar or how he shouldn't rely on his creed. So I like that, and I also like that we see him using a spear because we know that he has the Beskar spear, which I'm sure we're gonna see in action next episode. But I like how we're kind of seeing that Din knows how to fight with the spear, and it's not like all of a sudden in the last episode he's just like really good at using a spear. But there is one scene where he does fight off ships of pirates coming after him, and 3 more pirates come after him, and he like just puts up his arms ready to fight and just lets out this sigh that I thought was so funny. It was just kind of like this, like, all right, like, just as they are reaching the refinery, some TIE fighters come and they blow up the pirates, and they get escorted in by other stormtroopers, and it's this really weird moment where we are happy to see the TIE fighters and the stormtroopers, and it's so weird to be cheering for the Empire. They go to find the terminal in the mess hall, but as soon as Mayfield tries to walk in, he recognizes a commanding officer he used to serve under, Valen Hesk. This completely sets him off, and he's like, I can't go in there, I'm sorry, I'm calling it, like, I'm sorry. And Din is like, no dude, like, we're doing this. And we find out that it's a face reader. And so Din will have to take off his helmet, and Din is like, I'll do it, it's fine. Din takes off his helmet, and I like that he does it with almost no hesitation. Like, Din is ready to risk it all. Like, he's ready to put it all on the line. This is his only shot of finding where Moff Gideon is and saving baby Yoda. So he takes off his helmet, and we get Pedro Pascal looking so handsome, if I do say so myself. Valen starts approaching him and asks him what his position is and what his TK number is, and Din just kind of freezes. Something I really like about this moment is Din does look so uncomfortable. Like, Pedro does sell it as someone who hasn't took off his helmet in probably 20 years in front of humans. Like, I don't even think he takes it off in front of baby Yoda. And just as things start to get sticky, Mayfield comes in clutch. He risks it all to save Din. And the thing is, he didn't have to. Mayfield saw what was happening and he could have left. And the reason I think that Mayfield does this is because he sees Din break his code. He sees him break his creed for baby Yoda, or for the child, for his son. And he says that Din is his commanding officer and he's a little hard of hearing because of a battle that he was in. When Valen asks what his name is, Mayfield says, "Oh, we just call him Brown Eyes." So cute. Brown Eyes. Valen invites them to drink. Valen's like, "What should we cheers to?" So Mayfield, who cannot keep his mouth shut, says we should cheers to Operation Cinder. Valen says this is a man who knows what he's talking about, and Mayfield returns, "No, I was there. I was part of that. I was part of Burning Con." Operation Cinder is a reference to the Battlefront 2 games, and what it's referencing is when Palpatine, he kind of made this plan. If Palpatine died, he would make everyone else go down with him, basically. And then we get to my favorite part of the episode, which is Mayfield and Valen kind of having this back and forth. Mayfield is challenging Valen on just how easy it seems Valen made these decisions to kill all his men, and not just his men, but the locals, the people that lived there. And I think this whole conversation makes what Mayfield said in the transport juggernaut earlier on in this episode so much more enlightening. I think it adds so much more weight to that conversation. I suggest going back and rewatching this episode with this part in mind. I think Mayfield has been waiting for this opportunity to confront Valen, or at least anyone involved in Burning Con or Operation Cinder. I think he's been waiting for this moment for a long time. You know when someone does something to you and you're like, "Oh, I wish I said this." I think that this is Mayfield's moment. I really think that Mayfield has been losing sleep over this, if you will. It's so funny because Din is just sitting there like... I think another thing that contributes to this conversation is Mayfield was so nervous to run into Valen. Like, he was about to blow the whole mission because he didn't want to meet Valen face to face. And when he does meet Valen face to face, Valen doesn't remember him at all. He is just another faceless soldier that died for the Empire. And I think this really messes with Mayfield. It would mess with me, and I think that really triggers him. And Valen just pushes and pushes and pushes Mayfield so far in this, and like the thing is, like, Valen doesn't even know it. Like, Valen is just being such a tyrant that he doesn't even realize what is happening. Like, his belief in the Empire is so strong that, you know, if you die for the Empire, it's a good thing. And it's just crazy because that's almost like what the Mandalorian, the believer. And I know that, like, I joke around with the word triggered a lot in these, like, I'm always like triggered, but like the thing is, Mayfield was actually triggered. Like, his PTSD was so forward in this conversation, even when they first started talking. Bill Burr's acting in this scene was like, the trauma from Mayfield was palpable. Valen says that with their shipment today, that they'll be able to do worse than Burning Con, and that was what set him off. You literally could see Mayfield's face, just his trauma, just, it jumped out at us. Mayfield makes a split decision where he just shoots the officer right in the chest, like, and then Mayfield and Din's glance to each other. You can hear like a pin drop, like I think the cup or a plate drops, and everyone just kind of like looks at each other like, what just happened? And then they just start shooting everyone. And they make the escape on the side of the building. Fennec and Kara offer support, sniper support, as they climb up to the roof where Boba Fett comes and picks them up. I just want to say I'll never get tired of seeing Boba Fett in the Slave One. And as they're flying off, Mayfield says, "Hey, give me that rifle," and he makes the decision to just blow up the Rydonia plant refinery. As he turns back to the Slave One, he looks at Din and says, "We all gotta sleep at night." The thing I like about this moment is that Mayfield is very consistent as a character, but he still has this arc that he goes through. At the very beginning of the episode, he says, Republic, Empire, they're all the same. But at the end of the episode, he realizes that the Empire is the bad guy. They're not the same thing, but it still is this, I had to do it. It helps me sleep at night. He couldn't go to sleep knowing that he would be contributing to something worse than what he was a part of when he was in Burning Con and Operation Cinder. And then the Empire sends 2 TIE fighters after Boba, and I'm like, do you guys not know that this is Boba Fett? Like, they don't, but like, we do. So Boba Fett hits them with a seismic charge, and I'll tell you guys, like, I got chills. Like, hearing it, chills. I just got chills. We said Boba Fett, they gave us Boba Fett. And then we meet back up with Fennec and Kara, And Mayfield says, good luck with your kid. Like, I love that everyone is acknowledging that Baby Yoda is Din's kid. Like, so Cara Dune and Din end up letting Mayfield go. They're like, oh, too bad Mayfield died. They let him go, which I was kind of glad for because maybe we'll see him in season 3. Do you guys hear me? Now I'm like, oh, are we going to see Mayfield again? Like, character development for myself. I thought it was funny because Mayfield thought that they were going to kill him. He was like, wait. The very last scene is Gideon on his ship receiving a message from Din. And so Din is telling Moff Gideon exactly what Moff Gideon said to him in season 1, episode 7, word for word. And I just think Din is so petty. Din is so petty. Like, this is the most petty thing that you could ever do or say. Like, this is Din really admitting, yo, I will do anything for this kid. Like, this is my son. I'm coming to get him and I will K-word you. And it was a little scary. I was a little scared. Were you guys? And that is the end of the episode. So one thing is I'm really bummed that we didn't see Grogu at all in this episode. That was one thing I did not like about this episode. The only reason I watched The Mandalorian is for Baby Yoda. I literally don't watch it for anything else. Or what's that meme? Watches The Mandalorian for the plot. The plot, Baby Yoda. I'm just kidding. Like, I watch it for like the hot guys. I'm just kidding. No, I love Star Wars. I'm literally kidding. Let's talk about who the believer is in this episode. And I think, let's start with Din. So I really think that Din could be called the believer because his beliefs were constantly challenged in this episode. Seeing Din take off his helmet willingly for the child shows that we all have our limits. It's just a matter of like what's going to happen or what is going to push us to our limit. And we saw Mayfield get pushed to his limit. It's Mayfield who can also be considered the believer because I think that he finally believes that the Empire is bad. I mean, I think he knew that the Empire was bad, but I think that this was a way for him to kind of confront that. Earlier in the episode, he really said that they're all the same, the Republic and the Empire. They're the same thing. But by the end of it, he blew up the Empire. And then one of my friends from the Baby Yoda Social Club, Mariah, pointed out that Cara Dune can also be considered the believer because her views were also challenged. Her morality was also challenged. In the last episode, she was saying that she has rules to follow, but she ends up breaking those rules for Grogu, for Din. Even in this episode, she breaks her rules again to let Mayfield go because she knows that not everything is black and white. But I think the biggest believer in this episode was Valen. He was a believer to a fault. He died for the Empire. Honestly, I really like this episode too because I like any that challenges morality and your beliefs and your way of thinking. Question everything, as they say. This episode did a really good job with that, not only with our characters, but just the way that the show was shot. We see the villagers not appreciating the Empire be there. We see the pirates trying to do exactly what the rebellion has been doing, and we cheered for the Empire killing, K-wording all the pirates. It was just, we were so flipped back and forth. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about this episode? Who do you guys think the believer is? Is there more than one? The next episode is our final episode, and then we have to wait a year, and I'm so bummed that we have to wait a year. I don't know what we're gonna do for a year. Honestly, cry. I was really nervous about these last 2 episodes just because the child was taken. Now that we're here, I think I'm just more excited. You know, I'm really excited to see what Favreau and Filoni have up their sleeve. They really have not let us down at all. I honestly love hearing from you guys, getting comments from you, getting DMs from you. It's like my favorite part about making YouTube videos, honestly. So don't be afraid to talk to me, leave me a comment, drop a like. You guys know how it is. If you guys like Star Wars or The Mandalorian, I highly suggest subscribing. Can I not speak today? If you guys like The Mandalorian or Star Wars, I highly suggest subscribing to my channel so you can listen to me not speak properly. I'm like right there. I'm like right at the end. I can do this. I can do this. I hope that you guys have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you very, very soon. And this is the way.